everyone! It's Halloween, and I figured what better way to celebrate than by reviewing the game based on the movie, based on the book, Caroline.
That's Coraline.
Sorry, that's Coraline.
Laika's Coraline is undoubtedly their crowning achievement. Sure, their subsequent movies have mostly retained their charm, but for me personally, there's not one that quite measures up to the surreal, spellbinding and eerie aesthetic of Henry Selick's stop-motion masterpiece.
Oh no, not that one!
Oh my god.
That's the one!
Indeed, Coraline might not have the same appeal and cult following as The Nightmare Before Christmas, but it nonetheless maintains its own charm. Ordinarily, I'm also a fan of the video games based on some of the darker and creepier kids' media.
I am the Pumpkin King!
Both The Nightmare Before Christmas Oogie's Revenge and the insanely creative Haunted Mansion game serve as perfect examples in my eyes. These are essentially child-friendly horror games, obviously tame enough to remain accessible for kids, but also unafraid to convey a downright spine-tingling atmosphere. Now, since the movie Coraline boasts a similar eerie tone, I expected that the game would follow suit, and perhaps deliver something just as dark and impactful.
There's no way this game could possibly be boring. Is there?
Hey Mom.
Coraline, I am really busy right now.
The game opens in Coraline's house, where her mother instructs her on how to move boxes.
You can also help by getting some of these boxes out of the way.
And her mother is indeed so overworked that she can't tell the difference between boxes and a chest of drawers, but no matter, it wouldn't make the task any more interesting now, would it?
Moving boxes is boring.
Coraline can push and pull boxes and also climb on top of them. Yeah, looks like we're off to a positively gripping start.
Tell me more!
Coraline, I'm kind of busy right now.
We also encounter our put-upon exhausted father, who suggests you find 7 blue objects throughout your house, because, well, pointless busy work, really.
Oh, there's one.
And yeah, she doesn't even retrieve them. She literally just looks at all the items.
Blue.
Indeed, these opening stages left me feeling a little blue myself, but I decided to give the game the benefit of the doubt. Let's face it, most movie games open with a bland, generic tutorial level. Heck, even the Nightmare Before Christmas game is hindered by an indisputably insipid opening few levels. But in the case of Coraline, this tedium never really seems to relent. Fantastonishing, right?
If you say so, hun. Whatever it means.
The game is littered with pointless busy work and frankly boring minigames, the completion of which sees you rewarded with buttons. Which is admittedly a nice idea for a collectible, even though in the other world it sort of implies that she's collecting eyes, which is kinda weird, but hey, it's not like I haven't done it before. Isn't that right, Shrek?
Nobody wants to see me hungry.
Indeed. Anyway, with the buttons, you can purchase items in the shop, such as costumes for Coraline, which can be accessed from her room, snapshots, and movie clips. I say movie clips, although misleadingly, these are actually simply the game's slideshow cutscenes. What a waste of buttons that was!
You know, as if the concept of movie clips isn't disappointing enough. These aren't even clips of the movie!
In the end, retrieving enough buttons to purchase all the items is nothing but a chore, especially when the tasks required of you are frankly insipid, including crushing some bugs, switching on lamps, and manipulating paintings by twisting the analog sticks.
Ah, much better.
Positively thrilling stuff. There's also a fortune-telling tortoise shell in Coraline's room that acts kind of like a magic 8-ball.
Okay, hold on, I have a question. Will this game get any less boring?
Well, that figures.
Can't say I'm shell-shocked.
You can also earn buttons by kicking these soccer balls into the goal. And yes, the kick ability is as awkward as it looks. I tell you, the physics make no bloody sense. It's actually much easier to just gently dribble the balls into the goal. Yes, the game genuinely allows this. I may as well just pick the balls up and put them there.
That's pure talent right there, guys.
Once we return to our dad, he then requests that we stack some newspapers. Wow, inspired. Once we've completed all the boring household tasks, we then head over to our neighbour, the acrobat Mr. Babinski, who gives you a slingshot.
Press R1 button to equip and unequip slingshot.
With your slingshot, you can target objects and hit them from a distance. And Mr. B gets you to practice on his doorbell.
Good shoot, Caroline! If ever you need Mr. B's attention, shoot doorbell with slingshot.
And you know what? Despite offering to come to your aid whenever you ring the bell, it turns out he actually... well, doesn't. No, really. I purposely returned to his place a few times throughout the game just to ring the bell and see if he'd show up, but... nope, I guess not.
You say you're there for me, but you're not. Some neighbour you are.
There are a number of tasks throughout the game that require you to use your slingshot, either to earn buttons or to progress the story.
Gotcha.
Here, for example, we need to shoot the ripened apples into the basket as a gift for Miss Spink and Miss Forcible. I'm pretty sure this task would be easier if we were to just pick them like a normal person, but I'm not going to question it. Now, I was rather looking forward to meeting the two ladies in the basement, but sadly, as is the case for the whole bloody game, the meeting with them boils down to some very boring minigames, the most tedious of which is a game of Go Fish, in which you simply have to match your card with one of theirs.
New match.
And yes, it's as boring as it sounds, except when Forcible says,
I know you have a 10.
The vocal delivery here is really something.
That was fun, Caroline.
Oh, and one thing I also found fairly amusing is that throughout the game, characters really try to emphasize just how fun the minigames are.
It was great fun.
I get the impression that the developers are trying to subliminally convince me that I'm enjoying myself. In case you can't tell, I'm not.
Anyway, Forcible then asks Coraline if she knows of the nearby well. This isn't brought up naturally in conversation or anything, she just happens to mention it for absolutely no reason. And in a somewhat creepy tone at that.
Have you heard about the old well close by?
Well, I'd better be going now.
Once we make our way over to the well, the game suddenly cuts off. Okie dokie. Indeed, several of the movie's more prominent scenes are lazily conveyed through slideshows of screenshots, narrated by Keith David.
It wasn't long after that she made the acquaintance of Wybie Lovat.
This is a key moment in the movie, as it depicts Coraline and Wybie's first meeting.
I'm Wybie Lovat.
Which makes it all the more peculiar that it's glossed over so quickly. The game spends so much time on menial tasks like watering plants and mopping the floor, and devotes so little effort to the main narrative. It's frankly bizarre.
Coraline, I am really busy right now.
Anyway, once Coraline returns home, her mother sends her to bed. During the night, she sees one of Mr. Babinski's mice and decides to chase it.
I better get you back to Mr. B.
You call that mouse catching?
Looks like someone's been taking mouse catching advice from the Polar Express kid.
After chasing the mouse through the house, this eventually leads Coraline to the door to the other world.
A whole nother world.
Here, Coraline meets the creepy button-eyed other mother.
Oh, finally! Now the game will finally get going, right?
Well, not exactly. As soon as we arrive in the other world, the other mother requests that we help her make some pancakes.
The sooner you get the ingredients on the list for me, the sooner we'll have some yummy pancakes.
Right. So more boring minigames then. You know what, so far this game has all the ingredients of a bad movie game.
Oh, there it is.
To the game's credits, this does actually follow the movie pretty closely. At this stage, the other world was obviously perceived to be idealistic, and it does an adequate job of conveying this even in its more subtle details. The soccer balls, for example, grow legs here and automatically score a goal by themselves when kicked. Clearly the developers were aware of just how dreadful the kick ability is.
Rule number 96! Aim!
All the same, I had hoped that our arrival in this world might amount to something a little more exciting than another basic item hunt.
Got it.
With all the ingredients, we then have to beat the eggs in a time limit, while the other mother, eggs us on like it's some kind of life or death situation.
Faster, Coraline, faster!
Mother, we're making pancakes. Cool your shit.
With this thrilling task completed, we then have to go and tell the other father that supper is almost ready, and this somehow results in him coercing us into helping him play the piano, in one of the worst button sequence challenges I've ever seen. It probably wouldn't be so bad if they simply depicted a directional button or arrow required, but I personally find the depiction of the entire D-pad to be so visually confusing. Maybe I'm just slow as hell, but it took a while for my dumbass brain to register what I was meant to be pressing. Despite my complaining here, this is actually the easiest of the button sequence challenges. Later ones also see you having to press other buttons at the same time as the arrows, but otherwise they're all just about the same, really.
That was a lot of fun, Coraline.
Was it, Father? Was it really? Really?
And by the way, while we're in this room, you can use the record player to play various tunes from the game's soundtrack, which is kind of neat. Although it's rather difficult to lose yourself in the music when your other father is mindlessly mashing his piano keys at the same time.
I'm trying to listen to my music.
Now, I just want to talk about this game's extremely uneven difficulty. The majority of challenges in this game are incredibly simplistic, though there are a handful that are simply unfair, such as this one, in which we have to play a game of hide and seek with the other Wybie.
Okay. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that.
Wybie will hide 3 times, and it's up to you to find him in the time limit. The problem is that you have such a short amount of time in which to search the entire house, with no indication of where he might be. I'm serious, I failed this game a few times before I realised where to go. It's ridiculous! And yeah, I'm really starting to regret choosing this music. For the love of God, make it stop!
That was fun.
It doesn't matter how often you say it, it does not make it so.
Before too long, it's finally time for pancakes, and our job is to catch them as they're tossed by the other mother.
Don't catch any of those nasty bugs and worms.
Sorry, bugs and worms? Why are you tossing them? I take it we're not big on hygiene in this world.
You know what? I'm not that hungry. Think I'll skip supper.
After Coraline is ushered to bed, she has a dream in which she finds a confused Wybie outside in the dark.
Come here, you little munchkin!
Wait!
When he flees, we need to look for him, and this sees the introduction of the jar of fireflies. With it, you can not only light your way through the darkness, but you can also ward off encroaching enemies. The objective here is simply to follow the path of light beams to find Wybie.
No!
In order to keep your makeshift lantern lit, you need to hold it up to catch fireflies. There are a few parts of the game that are similar to this, and as such it makes more sense to talk about them collectively. These levels do get progressively harder, but the gameplay isn't much to write home about. What makes these sections more impactful than the other levels is their tone.
You cannot run away from me!
The gameplay might still be bland as hell, but it at least feels as though there are stakes here. Until now, Coraline's health meter has been non-existent, but venturing outside in the other world sees the introduction of creatures such as rats, spiky evil hedgehog things, and...
Oh, what a surprise! I can't believe I didn't see this coming.
There are later levels that require you to move boxes onto switches to open gates to progress, but that's just about as interesting as it gets. Now and again you'll also happen upon snapdragons, which can be defeated merely by lighting the lanterns nearby.
Tickle no more, you dragon snappers.
These sections aren't especially inspired, but it's these levels in the other world that hint at what the game could have been. Thinking about it, there's so much potential with an alternate universe scenario. Some of my favourite games involve switching between 2 universes. Seeing the differences of the 2 worlds and their impact on one another is an intriguing concept. This game has the potential to be just as eerie and impactful as those, but it falls flat as the game is strictly linear, and the levels in the other world aren't any more interesting, despite the promise of a dark and whimsical alternate universe.
Indeed, this other world isn't quite as otherworldly as I was expecting.
Arguably the most tedious location in the regular world is the barn. You visit here twice, first when looking for Wybie, and the second time to locate the combination code to Mr. Babinski's house. And yet both times you visit, you're basically required to do the exact same things. That is, moving and stacking boxes, and then walking along a pipe like a tightrope. Neither of which is particularly interesting. These sections really bring the game to a grinding halt. It wouldn't be so bad if Coraline wasn't intolerably slow. Oh, come on! The tightrope section is basically the same on both visits too. I mean, they added some random rats on the second visit, but none of them seemed to hit me. I imagine if you tilt too far to the side, they might knock you down or something. But as I remained upright throughout, I genuinely don't know what they do or why they're there.
I suppose we're just lucky that the rats can't follow us. Although I'm pretty sure they could if they tried. Let's just hope Remy doesn't show them the ropes.
Oh yeah!
The game basically continues in this fashion as Coraline alternates between the worlds. There are some interesting locations here, but the tasks within them are all pretty underwhelming, and they never seem to progress the story much at all.
Ouch! Be careful!
For example, once you've located Wybie, you just have to avoid the beetroots he shoots at you.
Don't shoot!
And immediately afterwards, Coraline just goes home?
I am going home and will never speak to you again. Ever.
Really? What was the point in this?
Beats me.
I was also looking forward to visiting Mr. B's in the other world. but it amounts to little else besides some pointless games, including a task in which you need to identify the pictured mouse.
Good job.
It's just too damn easy. He's the only mouse in a striped coat and the picture never changes. Where's the challenge exactly?
Okay.
Mr. Babinski's tasks in the regular world are ironically more interesting, and even they simply boil down to a dull button sequence challenge and juggling beetroots.
I guess you could say these tasks can't be beat. I'll show myself out.
Back in the other world, Spink and Forcible have a few tasks for you as well.
Why don't you come over and participate in our joyous musical?
But as usual, there's not much to report here. There's another visually distracting button sequence challenge.
From those top-heavy fish women, they'll turn tail and run for the shore when they hear the song from before. You'll be nothing but a bad omen.
Speaking of visually distracting...
Madam, cover your shame!
But there's one task here I found absolutely ridiculous in terms of difficulty.
Great job!
The idea is to aim the cannon so that Miss Spink catches the balls a total of 7 times while swinging on a trapeze.
Higher and higher!
Honestly, this task is insane. I swear my winning this was a fluke. Aiming this thing is a nightmare. It would be hard enough if the cannon was stationary, but as well as constantly moving back and forth, you have to tilt the cannon so that it aims directly at her hands.
Oh, Coraline, this is wonderful.
They are not the least bit lenient here. You have to land the ball in her tiny hands perfectly. I very nearly rage quit, I'm not kidding.
I hope you will come back and join us for another performance.
Yeah, I think I'll pass.
You're gonna have to pay me in more than buttons if you want me to do this again.
After another one of those spooky Firefly levels, we once again encounter Wybie in the regular world. And even though this mission looks more exciting, it's basically like one of the tightrope tasks again, as you simply have to keep Coraline balanced while the bike careens down the path. And as usual, once it's over, nothing seems to happen. Coraline tells Wybie that she thinks the other mother has kidnapped her real parents, but this doesn't amount to anything.
You should get some help, Jonesy. If you know what I mean.
It's only by the final act that the game finally feels as though it's getting interesting, and judging by the cutscene alone, it's noticeably rushed.
If she could find her parents and the ghost children's eyes, then she would win and they would all be set free.
Like, you're suddenly required to find the 3 ghost children's eyes, but unless you've seen the movie beforehand, you'd have no idea what's going on.
Well, I certainly didn't see this coming.
Not to worry though, because neither did they. Ha ha ha! Okay, anyway. The first eye is in the garden, and it's yet another irritating button sequence challenge. I swear they don't give you nearly enough time to recognize what buttons need to be pressed in order to win. If you don't respond in a split second, you're dead. The second eye is in the basement and requires you to once again walk a tightrope, this time while avoiding the dog bats blocking your way. When she falls, you're prompted to turn the analog sticks to recover, and sometimes this works, but other times she just seemed to give up.
I mean, frankly, I don't blame her. I'm almost at the end of my rope myself.
Speaking of which, with the second eye retrieved, we can then find the last one at Mr. Babinski's. Here you need to use your slingshot to plug the cannons so that you can reach the rats posing as Mr. B. After one of the rats makes off with the eye, you need to chase it down while the building collapses around you. Finally, stuff is happening, and it's right at the end of the game.
The third ghost eye was soon in hand.
The retrieval of the third and final eye results in one final confrontation with the other mother, aka the Beldam. And this is ridiculous. First you need to complete the button sequence as the cat attacks her. As usual, the button combinations flash up on the screen, and you have about a second to respond to them. If you fail to press the buttons in time, the other mother throws the cat away, and you need to start from scratch. Honestly, the only way I made it through this was by learning the button sequence. It's seriously unfair.
Dare you!
Now, I was hoping for a proper final boss here, but the game's final moments simply see you having to climb the webbing and avoid the surrounding giant spiders, who don't seem to do anything? I mean, granted I didn't go near them at all because, well, why would I?
I figured it was wise to keep my distance. After all, at this point, we know what giant spiders are usually capable of.
But these have to be the most immobile giant spiders I've ever seen. Really, they don't move at all.
You have 8 legs, dude. Perhaps you could use them?
Once we've reached the hole in the wall, the game finally concludes with another dull button sequence challenge. And, well, that's it. Really, this has to be one of the most underwhelming conclusions to a movie game I've ever played. Did you like the Coraline game? No.
Coraline? More like Boraline? Ha!
That was a lot of fun, Coraline.
I personally found this game to be a huge disappointment. It's not especially poorly made, but the majority of the tasks are just plain boring. There are some nice locations here, and I will admit that in terms of atmosphere, the other world is somewhat enchanting, but the game itself is just dull. The best parts are the nighttime Firefly levels, but even they get tired after a little while as they're all too alike, not to mention that they're few and far between. The varied difficulty is also incredibly odd to me. Most of the tasks are stupidly easy and repetitive, but some of the games are frustratingly hard for no reason.
Higher and higher!
Despite vaguely following the movie's narrative, there's not really much cohesion. Like, it may as well be a random assortment of minigames without a story to follow.
Good job.
It honestly wouldn't make a difference, which is a real shame as I feel as though the movie lends itself well to a video game adaptation. It's not the worst game ever, but it's disappointing when you consider how good this game could have been.
It's a real pity, but Coraline for PS2 is far from fantastonishing. Happy Halloween, everyone!
Hey everyone, thanks for watching once again. I hope the video wasn't as boring for you as the game was for me. And by the way, in order to add most of the backing music to this review, I actually returned to the record player in Coraline's house to record it. And when I did, the other father was just standing there creepily. Like, hello? Can I help you? When I was listening to the music, it was just standing there staring at me and slowly breathing. It was genuinely the creepiest thing I encountered in the game, and I don't think it was at all intentional. Like, dude, piss off. Why are you here? Anyway, as has become the norm, I cannot tell you when I'll be back, I'm afraid, but rest assured I don't plan on going anywhere. So once again, happy Halloween. I'll be back hopefully in a not too distant future. Deleted scenes for this review are now available on Patreon, and otherwise I'll see you next time, whenever that will be. Bye bye for now.
Have you heard about the old well close by?